good afternoon. Welcome back to the Miami Sports Break. I'm David Eversole here, joined as always by my co-host, Jakari Givens. We have a special guest today, a man in the middle, Ariel Attias. Hope I didn't butcher the last name too bad. I know we talked about that. So I want to welcome you guys back to the Miami Sports Break. And before we get started, I want to mention one of our great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, Biscayne Bay Brewing. Great local company, really involved with the community, both in the sports world and obviously in the community as well. Get to know them at www.biscaynebaybrewing.com/beer finder, and that's where you can find them in your area. Good afternoon, guys. What's going on, gentlemen?
Everything's going good. Hey, happy birthday to Tua, Dolphins quarterback.
Hey,
23 years old today. Just
Oh,
making
man.
sure we give him a shout out on the Miami Sports Break. If you're watching Tua, when you start watching, you come on the show, we'll talk about it.
Exactly. We got a lot to talk about for sure, man. But the Dolphins are going to be a big story in the next month or so. But today we want to talk about the Miami Heat back in that bubble mentality. They've won 6 straight games. So we wanted to get Ariel on today just to go over some of the storylines from the team recently, give his takes on the state of the team and what they should do moving forward. So want to start with this win streak, obviously 6 big games in a row. What have you seen from them over the streak that kind of stands out to you so far?
I feel like they've gotten back to a little bit of the identity that they had last season, in that they're playing much better offensively. Getting Goran Dragic back has really infused the team with confidence. They, have just a certain air about them when he's on the court. Like, they've got their guy back, and you can see the confidence come through in the way they play. The offense has been better. Ball movement's been better. The commitment to cutting with purpose and looking for the ball when you cut has been better. I think Spo has really gotten back on track after what I felt like was a little bit of a slow start to the season by his standards from a coaching perspective. He's added wrinkles to the defense to where, they're throwing out so many different looks for the opposition. The zone, 2-3 zone, 2-2-1 zone, different iterations of it. We saw a full court press a ton in the last game, which resulted in turnovers on the Hawks end and mucked up their offense. It's been really encouraging. And like I said, the offense has been better since Goran's been back. In the last 3 games, the team is averaging over 116 points per game, which is up from their 24th in the NBA ranking this season at 107.7 points per game. So the offense is trending in the right direction, and they've got a really soft schedule going forward, so they have a chance to really move up in the standings here.
Another thing we should point to is Kendrick Nunn taking on the point guard role. I know Miami was trying to kind of get tired of Hero to be in that mode that Kendrick Nunn has taken over, but I think the roles have switched. I think Nunn has played very well. I mean, I think it's just because of the minutes. He's got more minutes. He's been consistent with his time. He's looking like how he looked pre-bubble last year, where he was just igniting the offense, coming off the bench, giving you the 20 points a game, having a strong season. He's gotten better, and he's competing more on the defensive end as well. I still think Miami needs to make a trade. The 6-game win streak kind of putting a Band-Aid over, a wound. They still have to make a trade because they lack size. And I feel like Miami could be better on-ball defenders if they have a bigger center in. Then that gives you ability to put Bam on the second best player, second best ball handler, or the second best defender, because he's a plus defender when he wants to be. But I still think Miami needs to make a trade. I would love the John Collins trade, but I doubt it. Lonzo Ball trade, but I doubt it because they're competing. Whiteside in the buyout market, I doubt it.
No, come on.
No, please no.
I doubt they'll run that
Jock
one
takes.
back.
No.
I doubt they'll run that one back, but DeMarcus Cousins is still available. Just want to see where he at with that. But I do think Miami still needs to make a trade and still need to add something to his team for it to make a deep playoff run, because you have to look at the teams who've gotten better. The Nets have gotten extremely better, and that's who we're competing against. It's not the Milwaukee Bucks anymore. You have to be able to go offensively toe-to-toe with the Nets, because I think they're the team to beat in the East. I think Miami can hang with. I think they can beat the Bucks still. I think they can. The 76ers is not a good matchup for them either because they're too big. But I still think they can beat them in the series if it came down to it. But so I think Miami still needs to add something to that. But tremendous job, the last 6 games they've gotten back to what we know as Miami Heat basketball, and I think health played a big role in that. But they still need to make a trade.
Now, I want to talk about a couple of guys. I want to talk about Kelly Olynyk and Kendrick Nunn. Obviously, KO catches a lot of flack. He's very streaky as a shooter, but the numbers bear out that he has been an effective piece of the starting lineup in particular. So want to get you guys' thoughts on him. And obviously, Kendrick Nunn's play over the last 6 games has really improved on both sides of the court. I think especially his defense has really taken a huge leap. He was always kind of that microwave offensive guy who could get you, baskets in bunches, but you've seen his off the ball defense getting in the passing lanes. You've seen he has active hands, seems to have good instincts. I think that's some of that Jimmy Butler effect. Jimmy Butler, I think, is possibly the best off ball defender at the guard position in the NBA in terms of getting in the passing lanes and disrupting with his hands and just with his knowledge. And him and Iguodala obviously are both, very good at those type of things. So what are you seeing from those two guys in particular? I'll start with you, Ariel. What do you think about Olynyk's place in the rotation? Should he continue to get those minutes? Because there's not really a lot of options in his spot. So we'll start with him, and then what do you think about Nunn's role moving forward as well?
So with regards to the whole Kelly Olynyk thing, he's become kind of like Twitter's latest lightning rod. It was Kendrick Nunn until he started playing better. You're right, though, that the numbers bear out that the Heat's best lineups, the vast majority of them include Kelly Olynyk. But he'd been in a terrible, terrible shooting slump for the past 3 or 4 weeks. He had been like 3 of 28 or 4 of 29 or something heading into the last game 2 nights ago against the Hawks. I do think that a lot of the criticism isn't necessarily warranted, but at the same time, he kind of doesn't fit the mold of the player that this team needs starting next to Bam, in my opinion, that allows them to get back to the style of play that they were most successful with in the bubble last season, right? They had Jay Crowder starting at the 4, and that allowed them to play smaller, switch everything all across the court, and it let them play faster, and it just was an identity that worked for them. Kelly Olynyk doesn't let you do that because he's not a very good one-on-one defender. He's okay as a team defender. He has decent defensive awareness. But I think in the playoffs, he's not somebody you can rely on because, again, you're not able to switch a lot of the actions on the court. He'll end up in a mismatch in a lot of different places.
They'll go right after him.
They'll be searching him every time,
right.
1 for a pick and roll or whatever.
Correct.
It may be.
They'll be running him. They'll be running all kinds of pick and roll, screen and roll actions where they'll know that the Heat will want to switch and he'll end up on a guard on the perimeter, and that's barbecue chicken. So there's that. Also, the other issue there is his hot and cold shooting nature is also something that you, again, don't want to rely on in the playoffs. So I think Kelly is mostly fine as a bench guy, as an 8th or 7th to 9th guy in your rotation, but I don't think he's ideal as a starter here. So like you had mentioned, Jock, they definitely need an upgrade next to Bam. And then with regards to Kendrick Nunn, Ethan Skolnick from the network has talked about this on the 5 on the Floor podcast, saying that with him, it was all about confidence. It was just a matter of getting him back to where he had been throughout the season. And the demotion from the starting 5 really messed with his game. You could see it, right? He wasn't the same player in the bubble. Putting him back into the starting 5, put him back in a position where he was successful last season with a group that he's familiar with for the most part. And so, yeah, the improvement defensively has contributed to that as well. That's definitely a thing.
His thing is he's a confidence guy. He's like Kyle Kuzma a little bit. If you ever notice when Kyle Kuzma gets to start in LA, how much more energy he has, how much more engaged he is defensively, and that's what Kendrick Nunn is. When he's starting, he's engaged. He's locked in. He knows he's a part of the game plan. But when he's on the bench, it kind of is like, oh, well, damn, am I a bench guy or am I, what am I? So I think that was a great move by Spo. But back to Kelly Olynyk, I don't see the need for him or Duncan Robinson anymore. I feel like the Miami Heat should move off those 2 pieces. to add what we need. And to bring up a great point, Spo brought it up in the press conference. You know, with Avery, the signing of Avery Batley allows Miami to guard down. So anything 1-3 switch, Miami can win. With Jay Crowder, it allowed Miami to guard up. So 1-5 pick and rolls, 1-4 pick and rolls. With the switch, you're comfortable with Jay Crowder guarding a power forward for a stretch of time or something like that. Looking at the power forwards, you will have to match up against. He's gritty and tough enough. Giannis, Kevin Durant, those guys like that. He's tough enough to get down in there and defend them for a possession or two. So I think Miami needs to find that. I would love Kevin Knox from the Knicks because I think he can do that as well. I think he will be committed in Miami. That's a name out there. I don't really too much know who we can go after at that 4 position. Like right now, who would be like just a shoe-in fit. I'm kind of blank at night. I mean,
let me ask this: is there a way we could find out a possibility to get Precious and Bam on the floor together? Is there any roster combination you see to get those two guys even a few minutes together? It just doesn't work because they're too similar in their skill sets.
Spo won't do it. Spo has never, ever, ever played 2 non-shooting bigs together. He never did it with Hassan. He didn't do it last season. He always has a shooting stretch 4 next to Bam. And if you start Precious with Bam, now you've got 3 non-shooters in the front court with Jimmy, and it's just not something that's ever going to happen.
And you will have to ask Bam to expand his game right away. Even though I think Bam can shoot the 3.
I think he can too.
I think if
we know he can.
That's the key. If they can unlock that, it unlocks so many different combinations because it's a threat of Olynyk. It's not the fact that he's a good shooter because the numbers would tell you differently. Right. It's the fact that occasionally he's a good shooter. So it's just the threat of Olynyk. He doesn't really give you that diversity. He's beyond the arc kind of guy. He's not a strong rebounder. And I just like to see a way to get Precious more minutes somehow. But there's just not a lot of ways that it's going to work as the team is constructed unless Bam can bring his game out beyond the 3-point line.
The reason why that they need that, like Kelly Olynyk in the lineup, is on all like look at the teams they're gonna have to play in the playoffs. With Giannis, it brings him out of the paint, so he's not a threat to block shots, be an all-ball defender. You look at Philadelphia, and B's not a threat to block shots when they're out of the perimeter. So they need that stretch 4. They need that 3-and-D4 to help them out because I think Miami made a mistake not signing Christian Wood when they had the chance because I think he would have been a great fit next to Bam Adebayo, and he's had a resurgence. So I think, like I said, the loyalty that Miami has had to their players has cost them other good players, and we wasted money on Miles Leonard this year. That was a waste of time, and I love him. I think he's a great team guy, but I think Miami has to find something they have to find that stretch 4. Maybe if you sign DeMarcus Cousins, you can play him and Bam together because they can shoot. He can shoot the rock, but I don't see the likelihood of DeMarcus signing with the Heat.
I have a couple of questions for you guys. Real quick, who do you think is a better shooter? Don't look at the numbers. DeMarcus Cousins or Kelly Olynyk this season?
Oh, Kelly O's a better shooter.
Okay. I thought you were going the other way with that because DeMarcus Cousins is shooting like 33% from 3 this season, 37% from the field. I think Heat fans want him because they love the shiny new toy. We always want what we don't have. But if you look at the numbers and you look at the advanced stats, he profiles as a barely replacement level player at this point in his career. Currently, he's not better than Kelly Olynyk, in my opinion. And my whole bit is that Kelly Olynyk is a spy and that I think Danny Ainge has compromising photos of him or something. Right?
Yeah, so
he
played
because it's
terrible. But
correct. He's Teflon, man.
To your point, you saying that, right? I think the Heat coach, like the Heat fans, think everybody plays their best basketball in Miami, which they do for the most part. Oftentimes, besides Mo Harkless, but he's been hurt, so we can't say if he's playing well or not. He's been bad. Avery Bradley's been hurt. So I would like to see. Obviously, we want to see KZ Okpala in that the 4. I think he would be the ideal player there, but he's still a year away.
Yeah.
He's still a year away from it. So I think the Heat fans, like I said, I think Miami needs to get younger. I do think that. I think they need to get a developmental guy. All these guys that done got through to the trash heap, Kevin Porter Jr., who Miami should have traded for. They should have got him. I think that guy has superstar potential. He was a first round pick. He got game. Dennis Smith Jr. All these guys are getting traded for nothing. And I think Miami should have got in on some of these guys because they just need younger players. Um, I just that's all I want to see. I don't care who they bring in. I just want to see them have another KZ Okpala type or another guy that we can be like, well, if he put it all together, he can be great. We don't have that right now. Right now, we're hoping and wish away. Like, oh, we got a lot of older players, guys who are on 1-year deals. Granted, I think Miami's going to make a push for John Collins regardless in free agency, Lonzo Ball in free agency. But we just want, somebody new, somebody young, exciting, like, who's next to Bam. Like, we know we got Bam for the next 10 years, right? When you want to see another guy with him for the next 10 years?
John Collins, like Alex says, I mean, he's obviously that guy who people have sort of keyed in on. Everything fits with him in terms of his game with Bam. He's got the South Florida connections, and I think he's a logical possibility. And the Hawks
With that, though,
franchise obviously in disarray. So
with that, you got to add a point guard, though, a true point who's setting those guys up, though.
mm-hmm. Do you think Lonzo Ball?
Lonzo,
I mean,
perfect fit.
So here's my thing with Lonzo. I like the idea. I do think it would help. My only thing, though, is that you would be probably what is the price point, right? Because probably you're going to have to part with Kendrick Nunn, which I would do personally. But if you had asked most Heat fans, I think about 3 to 4 weeks ago, most would have not been okay with. Most would have been willing to put Kendrick Nunn in a Lonzo Ball trade. Though with the way he's playing now, if he keeps this up throughout the rest of the season, the price point this offseason is not going to be 20 mil or 18 mil for Kendrick Nunn. It's going to be a 3-year deal at 10 to 12 mil per year. So you're looking at 3 years, 30 to 36. Whereas if you trade for Lonzo Ball, you should be planning on paying him because you're going to have to part with some assets there. And so the price point for Lonzo Ball, I think, is higher than Kendrick Nunn.
But this is my thing. Why, if they don't trade for Lonzo, he's a free agent next year. I don't see him going back to New Orleans because I think they're loaded at the guard position.
Yeah.
When you throw the bag at Lonzo, John Collins, and Kendrick Nunn, just get them the money. Like, hey, let's build around this. But you're like, this is the thing. I want to ask you guys this: do you think Miami missed out on the James Harden deal?
Yes, they should have done 100%. That deal. Absolutely.
100%, because it's like you always say with draft picks, you got to hit on them. And same thing, you hang on to these guys for their potential. The Gabe Vincents, the KZs, the Heroes, the Duncans. You're hanging on to all these guys for what they hope to be, but their ceiling isn't James Harden. None of their ceilings. We do not have a guy as good as James Harden on our team. We just don't. In terms of the guard position, what he can do, both as a facilitator, which nobody really talks about his assists. He's a great facilitator when he wants to be.
NBA in assists.
I think he can fit into any offense. I mean, he's a shot creator. He can spot up and shoot. He can penetrate. He can drive and kick. He can run P&R. I mean, the guy can do everything. So if you get past the average defense, I mean, he's your guy.
And that's my thing with players. And like fans, oh no, like I like Tyler Hero. I think he's a great player. But is Tyler Hero in the next 5 years gonna be what James Harden? Because this is a win now league. Championship windows don't stay open for years. You look at Miami Heat made it to the finals this year. They might not never make it back, for the next 5 to 6 years, even though we like Pat Riley and his, we know that okay, he's gonna make the right moves in that. But look at the free agency class coming up. You look at the Bradley Beal. That's another guy who Miami should go ahead and try to throw. I know he's saying he don't want him, but you have to offer this. You have to put yourself in position to do that. Miami, like to me, people are starstruck. Oh, like Tyler Hero is great, but he's not gonna be. He's not gonna be James Harden. He's not gonna be Bradley Beal. His ceiling is not that high. We're looking at Duncan Robinson. Like, oh no, Duncan, no, trade Duncan. We can develop him. And if you look at the roster right now, you have two guys who can be as good as Duncan Robinson, even better because Strauss is more athletic than him. He can be a better defender, and Gabe Vincent, he can be a better defender. They can learn how to shoot the basketball. I think Duncan Robinson should have been traded this offseason because he was a hot commodity. He's like he had his great year. Now teams got film on him. Every time they run dribble handoff with him, they're blitzing the pit. They blitz it. Okay, he's like we got to get him off the line. So like you trade these guys at their highest value. That's why I'm in agreement. If they trade Kendrick Nunn, you can always find Kendrick Nunn's walking around. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I think that the team as it is right now, they are two pieces away, probably at least. So with the development of Nunn lately, and with Hero, you've got a lot of guys in the backcourt that have a lot of upside, but their roles in the long term plans are a little bit uncertain. So let's talk about a little bit of the differences between this team and last year's team. What's the one major difference that you see, obviously, between the team that was 2 games away from NBA championship versus a team early in the year that struggled, and take out the COVID and all the other stuff? Just like, what do you see from a basketball X's and O's execution type situation from the Heat? What is the big difference you see in these two teams?
The biggest difference is they've kind of flipped strengths and weaknesses. So last year's team was, really, really good offensively. They were second in the NBA in 3-point percentage. They were right there, like right behind Utah, I think was first. The defense was solid, but not great last season. Whereas this season, it's kind of the opposite. They're 24th in points per game this season at 107.7, down from 112 last season. That's almost 5-point per game difference from last season. So that's a big difference. I mentioned the 3-point percentage. They went from second to 22nd this season. They're 24th in offensive rating. They're dead last in turnovers per game. Last season, they allowed 109 points per game. This season, I don't have the number in front of me, but it was lower. And so it's kind of interesting in that they've improved defensively while losing a guy like Jay Crowder, who we all thought his biggest value that he brought to the team was he allowed them to play a style that made them better on defense, where they could switch everything. So that's the biggest difference. And it's something that needs to be taken into consideration when you talk trades. So like if you're looking at, if you want to improve the offense, right? Because the offensive numbers are down across the board this season. John Collins plugs that hole next to Bam, like we talked about. I think Rudy Gay helps out a little bit at the 4 next to Bam as well. They're 7th in defensive rating this year, 6th in points allowed. So the defense has been pretty good to a lot of our surprise. I think they need an improvement on offense, frankly.
Hey, would you like the addition of a Kyle Lowry? Because I know Lowry's been linked to Miami.
So I'm with it. My only thing is, what is the asset cost, right? Because he's 35 years old. You're going to have to pay him this offseason. He recently expressed a desire, or I think there was a report that he expressed a desire to want to play near the current price tag that he's currently at for 2 more years. So if you've got to pay him, if you've got to pay him 30 mil, 60 million for the next 2 seasons, that's a high price point for a 35-year-old point guard. And if your team is not a definitive championship contender right now, which I think this team is not as far away from as you think, David. I think they're 1 trade away. But
yes,
if you're not there yet, then I don't know if that's a smart business decision. So depends on the asset cost, and it depends on what you're going to have to pay him going forward.
One more guy, Blake Griffin, Victor Oladipo, who all have been linked. Oh, and another surprise guy who may be in the buy market is Al Horford. I don't know what are the Oklahoma City Thunder gonna do there, but Al Horford would be a nice, temporary, fix next to Bam Adebayo. Can shoot the 3, a little bit better shooter. So I think Horford. You don't like Blake Griffin. I like Blake Griffin in Miami. I think he's a great fit.
No,
Yeah,
I think he's washed.
yeah, he's so washed. And honestly, another thing to consider when we're talking about Blake Griffin, if the Heat were to bring in Blake Griffin via buyout, because of course they're not trading for that contract.
No.
But if the Heat were to bring in Blake Griffin via buyout, you got to understand that we're losing Eric Reed. You know he's stepping down, right? Because I don't know if you remember how hard he trashed Blake Griffin in that Detroit series back in Miami earlier this season. I think we lose Eric Reed. That's something to consider. I don't think it's worth it.
What's a big loss? Do you think UD comes back for year 37
well,
next year?
I'm gonna be honest with you. That's a guy who Miami needs to just say, "Listen, that's it." Like, because he's holding a roster spot that we can give to a younger player who they can watch develop. Let's just be real.
Look, I generally agree with you. I think that he can do exactly what he does from a coaching perspective right now, like if he were a coach. But my thing with that is, generally speaking, now maybe this particular season it's different because of COVID and how often you're having to play games with guys out of the lineup due to the protocols and all of that. But generally speaking, the 15th roster spot has absolutely no impact on a team. That guy almost never, ever plays. I do agree, though, that in this season, it would have been helpful in some of those games where the Heat had to go with 8 healthy guys. You know what I mean? So, look, he's never going to play. I don't remember who it was, but somebody spoke to the effect of the fact that he's in the gym, working out with the guys, running the 5-on-5s, being technically part of the team does have some level of importance and gives more levity and more weight to what he has to say because he's really in the trenches with the guys. It's a little bit different if you're a coach, but I agree they could probably make better use of that roster spot than they could.
I agree. I mean, he's a developmental guy, but UD does bring the glue. He's tough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm torn between that because I think you can use, for other guys.
But that guy doesn't play, like you said. I mean, it's a catch-22.
Yeah.
And I mean, UD's obviously sort of earned that legacy spot, I guess, for as long as they feel that it's a viable relationship for the two entities. So he does bring you a lot of those intangible values.
And another guy I think Miami should try to go after. I know it's not a well-known name. It's Thon Maker.
Ooh, Thon Maker. That's interesting. If we're going with guys that nobody knows, I like DeAnthony Melton from Memphis. I think he'd be a really good upgrade point guard defensively. He'd be great if they.
He's a lockdown defender. Yes.
Yeah, he'd be a great addition. But
I like Thon. The reason why I like Thon Maker is two things. He's still young. He has stuff that you can't teach at 7 feet. He can shoot the basketball. He can play. I just think he's been in some bad position and the expectations was too high and he wasn't ready. I think if you get under the right development, he can become a solid player in the NBA.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think for the Heat before the All-Star break? Obviously, how many games do we have left? Is it just this week, right?
Atlanta and
New Orleans on the road.
On the road.
So, what are your predictions for those two games? I think we take Atlanta. Obviously, they're gonna be a little bit of a mess after the coaching change, and
well, it depends though, because if
they might play hard though, you never know.
If they didn't like the coach before and they got a new coach, I think going off topic about Atlanta, I think the biggest thing what was wrong with Lloyd Pierce with the team was he never got Trae Young under control. Like Trae Young was, I was watching the game when they was playing Oklahoma City. They were down like 8 points, and Trae Young was pulling up from 3 with 18 seconds in the shot clock. Like, in the game on the line, you're down by 8 points. So that's 4 possessions. 3 if you hit 2, like 3 if you hitting threes. Like that's the lead. And I think that was the biggest thing. That was the rift between John Collins and Trae Young. The coaching they weren't trying to get him under control. And he was loose, and you know what I mean. So I think Lloyd Pierce is a great coach. I think he just, he was in the wrong situation, and they need to fire whoever gave Danilo Gallinari that damn contract too, because that was BS. Like, why would you sign it? Yeah, why would you sign a guy? You got 50 other guys that at that position. Reddish, Hunter.
Could be a blessing. It could be a blessing in disguise for the Heat, though, because now they might not have the money, or at least not be willing to pay John Collins. But with regards to the two games, I said on the 5 Reasons Sports postgame show that they would probably split the Atlanta game just because it seems like sweeping both games when you're playing the same team twice. Also, Trae Young offers a lot of matchup problems for the Heat from a defensive standpoint at guard. So I expected that the Hawks would get one of those games, but with the way the Heat are playing, I'm going to go 2-0. They go into the break on an 8-game win streak.
No. What about you, Jock? We're going to wrap up about 1 minute to go here.
I want to say 2-0, but what I will say is, generally speaking, 6-game winning streak. One of them have to lose, but I feel like they can beat that. If they lose a game, it will be against the Hawks. I don't think they will lose to the Pelicans, but I think the Pelicans offer more of a matchup problem than the Hawks to me.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think they might take this game against Atlanta, but maybe looking ahead to the All-Star break, maybe have a letdown game against the Pelicans to end the first half of the season. So I got them going 1-1, but with a 7-game win streak after taking care of the Hawks. So we're going to wrap things up. Want to thank Ariel for joining us today. Tell everybody where they can find you on social media and some of the other projects you're doing here on the network.
You can follow me on Twitter at Ariel Attias 2, spelled the way you see my name up there, the number 2. And if you want to listen to my basketball takes and just general debauchery, you can catch me on the 5 Reasons Sports post-game shows after every game on the 5 Reasons YouTube network. And that's about it. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Anytime,
Absolutely.
brother.
It was great to have you. And Jaccare, before you go, give them everybody your contacts.
King Jock 24 on every platform until I retire. I've been had this name for about 15 years now, so I'm gonna retire it soon.
You can see all the shenanigans he's up to with his celebrity following out there, Jaccare. And you can catch me at my name, David W. Eversole, on the 5 Reasons Network, Tuesdays and Friday here at the Miami Sports Break. So I want to thank everybody for watching, and we'll catch you guys